Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio, for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Cheryl, W5MOO, Russ, K5TUX, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned in to episode number 559 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. We are glad to have you with us tonight. Thanks for being here. And before we get to our slate of short topics for the evening, we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. For the on assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so if anybody's wondering about the sort of odd shift in episodes, I think I made the executive decision to make the Linux in the Ham Shack and Livery and Ham episode be sort of like a non-episode, one that didn't fit the pattern that we have going here. So if you're wondering why this is not a weekender, that's why. We did our deep dive last time. Here's short topics, and we do actually have some short topics to topic. So I guess we should probably dive right into it, and we'll let Bill start with our first amateur radio one of the evening.
Yeah, and this is ham radio in the internet age. This article by Al Williams, he poses a final question in a non-refreshing, non-advertising. Non-refreshing. Yeah, it's a non-refreshing piece. And refreshing non-advertising piece over on Hackaday, because you know how much I like to be critical of Hackaday and their ability to try to sell you stuff. But this is a really interesting article, and I'm just going to highlight his last final thoughts on why not you? And this is all in quotes here. Some old hams say the internet is ruining ham radio. I say it is changing ham radio, just like it has changed virtually everything else. Some of those changes aren't that drastic anyway. For years, people chasing awards, trying to work long distances, or participating in contests have a very short contacts. You typically would exchange your name, location, how strong your signal is, and then make your way down to the next person to make a contact. The digital mode FT8 automates all of that. It is true that it isn't very personal, but those kinds of contacts were never personal to start with. What's more is that you don't have to use any of this if you don't want to. I operate a lot of Morse code with no mechanical assistance. If I hear a big pileup, I might go look at the computer to see who's been spotted on that frequency. But I don't have to. I could figure it out the old-fashioned way. Hams work with advanced signal processing software, satellites, moon bounce, support communities, design antennas, foster school education, work during disasters, and push the envelope on microwave communication. No matter what your interest, there's something you'll enjoy doing. For many years now, you don't even have to pass a test for Morse code. So if you didn't want to learn Morse code, or you didn't want to learn the code, you don't have to. In many ways, hams are the original hackers, and you might be surprised by how many hackers you know who are hams already. I don't know what ham radio will look like in the year 2100, but I know it will be pushing the limits of technology somehow. The end.
I'm sitting here and I stopped myself from jumping into the middle of that. But when you read the thing where he said he operated a lot of Morse code with no mechanical assistance, I was like, well, was he doing like tapping his fingers together or something like that?
I mean, technically that's mechanical, right?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of machinery involved in doing Morse code, but that was hilarious.
I think it was meaning more to computer assistance, having the computer key everything for you.
Oh, I know exactly what he was talking about, but it's much funnier if you kind of take everything out of context. So,
absolutely. But it's an interesting article anyway, and I mean it's definitely stuff we've already talked about here on the show and stuff like that. So Does it add anything? I don't know. It was a good read. I enjoyed reading the whole article. So I suggest you head over to Hackaday and check that out. Link is in the show notes.
All right. Very cool. And that's the thing about ham radio is there may be parts of it that you're just not interested in because you want to be old school. You want to be a lud, not a lid, a lud. And
unless you're you, right? You got to be a lid, right?
Well, yeah,
you're on the lid list, right?
I am officially on the lid list. Yes, but yeah, you can do things the old school way. Sometimes that's a lot of fun. That's how when I work POTA stations on single sideband, for example. Yes, I could use the POTA app on the web and ferret out signals that way. And I also have a waterfall display on the IC710, not the IC710, the FT710. Oh boy, don't confuse those two things. The universe will implode. But I don't even generally look at that. I just kind of take the wheel, scroll it up and down until I hear a voice, and there you go. And hopefully they're operating POTA because that's what I'm looking for. All right, with that, we have a second topic in amateur radio tonight, and that is, as hurricanes disrupt phone service, amateur radio comes in clear. The morning after Hurricane Helene, I've heard it pronounced Helena, Helene, whatever, pummeled the eastern seaboard of the U.S., Thomas Witherspoon inspected the damage to his western North Carolina home. The night before, he listened to the wind whip down trees and snap power lines along the 2-mile access road connecting his family to their few neighbors in Buncombe County. Like the tens of thousands of other North Carolina residents, the power to Witherspoon's neighborhood was completely out. It was impossible to communicate with the house down the road, let alone anyone several miles away. Unable to send text messages or make phone calls, radio became the one form of communication left in rural North Carolina. After fixing what he could on his own property, Witherspoon, a lifelong amateur radio enthusiast, began distributing handheld radios to his neighbors. Amateur radio is one of those things you get into because of your love of radio communications and the technical aspects of it, or the community and the challenges that you can overcome, quote unquote, Witherspoon said. Quote again, it's a lot of fun, but underlying all of that is the prime directive with amateur radio, that it's always there as emergency communications when all else fails. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've beaten the MCOM horse to death, but it's interesting to show up in Wired magazine.
Yeah, it was originally in Wired and then was reproduced here on this Undark site here for the Climate Desk collaboration, whatever that means. But I just caught the article and I saw the picture. So if you go to the link in the show notes, you'll see our favorite little handy talkie that everybody loves.
I can just imagine.
So that's what you do with that. You grab a bunch of handy talkies and the $35 variety ones, and you hand them out to your neighbors, and you open up the lines of communication. And yeah, this is it's actually pretty good. I've heard a lot of good stories about amateur radio, and it's being used, the net controllers and everything else going on over there in the Carolina region during the early parts of the disaster. So hopefully things are starting to come back together to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot coming out of there. Of course, the media loses interest pretty quickly in disasters and things like that unless something new happens. But yeah, and you mean to say that the Baofungs were proliferating? He didn't have a cache of FT5Ds held back that he could just give out to people?
Yeah, I'm sure. And they had a DMR, right, repeater and everything? Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
When all else fails, don't use the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, very good. That means we're down to the end of our whole two amateur radio topic for tonight. But with that, we can jump into some open source. So Bill's going to tell us a little something about Sonus.
Yeah, Sonusmix here. Yeah, this is it's an app that is used to easily manage audio routing in pipewire. So far, it features easy creation and management of virtual devices, volume control of individual pipewire nodes, application endpoints to manage entire applications at once, persistence for your setup, and locking nodes to prevent them from being changed or reset when you don't want them to. The project is a spiritual successor to Pulse Meter, or if you're not familiar, Voice Meter for Windows. It aims to accomplish the same goals more reliably and with more intuitive interface. There's currently a pre-built app image for download, and there are instructions to build a binary of Flatpak from source. Let's see. Yeah, pre-built Flatpak builds should be available soon. They're actually already available. Feedback is highly appreciated, either here or in the repo or on their Matrix channels. So please let them know if you have any issues. Let's see, a couple edits here. They released version 0.1.1. So, this is an early product with a couple bug fixes. And namely, the Flatpak now has the necessary permissions for a tray icon. That's cool. And the Flatpak repo is ready. Installation instructions are also on the website. So, and the link goes to the Codeberg repo. And I'm starting to see this Codeberg used everywhere. Are you starting to notice that with some of the repos making clones over there?
I had not seen that. Everything I've seen is still using like GitHub or GitLab or that other one that, yeah.
Yeah. So I installed this. Okay, yeah. I installed this. I haven't set it up yet. I was going to set it up for tonight, but I just didn't have time. I was too busy doing other things. But it looks pretty simple and straightforward. Probably simplifies having to use something like QPW Graph to do your own connections and disconnects and stuff like that. So you can probably set up different layouts. So we'll probably be talking about this a bit more in the future as I start using it, since I've started recording everything from my Linux box. So I'm kind of in that ecosystem of stuff, and it integrates in with like EasyFX, which I believe we mentioned the last time, which is basically the ability to use sound plugins and whatnot to enhance or change or compress or do whatever you want to your audio signal, both incoming and outgoing. And apparently this integrates very well with that as well. So yeah, I'll probably be taking this for a test drive here in the next week or so, and probably be recording the next podcast with it enabled. So check it out if you're into doing any kind of audio recording or even just simple audio stuff. It does tend to make things a little bit more interesting when you have more than one sound card, more than one sound device, and stuff like that, and you're trying to do some interesting routing.
Oh, very good. Weren't you using like Q pipe control or some weird thing like that?
Yeah, QPW Graph is what I use for mainly for channeling and stuff like that. I really don't have to mess with that too much anymore because I don't have any like weird devices plugged into this computer anymore. So I just have a USB-C device for the actual microphone and sound system. So that's pretty straightforward now. So I'm able to just select the device and rock and roll. And I do have EasyFX on to give me a little bit of compression, so I don't have to swallow the microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. So is it like compatible with like the LADSPA plugins and all that stuff?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, very good. That might be something worth checking out. Does it Sonusmix? So it doesn't have anything to do with anything in particular. It's just an application for pipewire. Very nice. All right. Well, I'm going to read this next story. It's really short, which means Bill's going to have to flesh it out because you obviously know more about it than I do. But we're talking about a project called Meadow. And Meadow is a cross-platform solution for building IoT applications, enabling the same application code to run across a variety of compute contexts, from microcontrollers like the F7 Feather and Core Compute Module Dev Kit, single-board computers like the Raspberry Pi, and even on the desktop, either with or without external hardware peripherals. So it's apparently developed by Wilderness Labs, so surely you have more to say about this than just this little blurb.
Well, I there is so much to what's going on in the Wilderness Labs section of the stuff that I kind of just wanted to shim this in here just as a generic sort of introduction to it, because I kind of came across it when we're researching that other product for doing GUI stuff for Linux. So I'm talking about the Avalonia UI library that we might be doing a deep dive on here. I'm still working on playing with it, but I came across this as sort of an interoperability component to Avalonia to do UI stuff. And they have, it's basically so you can write all your IoT apps to in a nice little subset library in C#. So you can use .NET code to do it. So it looked kind of interesting. So I don't have that much more details on it, but there are lots of examples and samples in their page that I did link in there, so you can kind of get an idea of what will work and what they have sort of already scoped out for various types of devices like the F7 and some various modules and whatnot, and shows you how to create the solutions and how to integrate with them, including things like, using BeagleBones and stuff like that with C#.
All right. Very interesting. Not something I do a whole lot, but I'm sure there's people out there who do and will be intrigued by this project. So go ahead and go check it out. And now we have some more free for non-commercial software.
Yeah, this is JetBrains Rider. And if this is starting to sound like a C# commercial here. But this is the Rider 2024.2 introduces a full line code completion. So this is a new release of Rider as well for multiple supported languages, reader mode with inline rendering of documentation comments, new task tab, a task dependency graphs for debugging, as well as improved navigation to class members. Updates for game development include highlights like bundling of the Godot, I don't know, plugin and enhanced Unreal Engine debugging. This release also introduces support for .NET 9 Preview SDK, including initial support for C# 13 features. The updated feature set is enhanced by improvements to AI assistance, such as enhanced code completion, AI-assisted VCS conflict resolution, and more. This is a full-featured IDE for individual non-commercial development. And that means that this is for learning and self-education, content creation, open source, and hobby development. It is compatible with AI Assistant, which is a purchased product. So like this is sort of, think of it as like a free core product. So a lot of add-ons that you can get. Support through public forums and a bug tracker. And anonymous data is collected from JetBrains. I've been playing around a little bit. I'm more familiar with just using bare bones like VS Code for doing C# projects, as well as a Visual Studio when I'm on a Windows box and stuff like that. But this is just another product that I've seen in various YouTube videos for learning C#. The guy I watch that's all he uses, JetBrains Rider. He of course probably has a enterprise version, but it always looks interesting to watch it being used. I was interested in kind of trying it out for myself. So I have downloaded it. I am running it on my Linux box here and my Mac upstairs. So again, I'll probably have some more information about it. And this does have a toolkit plugin for doing the Avalonia UI stuff. So that's kind of also why I was looking at it. So it has some of the stuff you need to do some interesting development in Linux for desktop applications using C#.
All right, and what's the thing you keep telling me every time I say bled at .NET?
Do what?
Every time I bring up .NET, and you're like, but it's open source.
It is open source.
I know.
It is open source.
but it came from that big Washington.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's quite performant, and there's a lot of support and libraries and everything else to make your life pretty easy if you appreciate and use that ecosystem. It can be quite easy to build even just console apps and stuff like that with very, very limited effort. Minimal APIs are real easy to build up. If you want to just throw up something to handle requests internally for your own little projects, real easy to do it. I could also do it in Perl or Python, run it in Fast API with Python, or one of those different engines and frameworks and stuff like that. This is just another thing. I use .NET every day, so it's sort of interest to me, and if I could use .NET in Linux more, it would be even more interesting, besides running server side componentry that we already do run in Linux containers.
Yeah. What is it I hear from you all the time? It's like, I'm not, I don't do DevOps. I'm not a programmer. and here we are talking about all of this C# and .NET development.
I know. Right now I'm trying to get through the Terraform stuff, getting that all hooked up, and that stuff I don't appreciate very much.
Okay, so quick warning for those people listening with the kids. Time to let them go to the other room for a couple of minutes and get you a beer. Bill decided to throw in this open source project. It's written in C or C++. Can't remember which one of the two. But it's pretty amusing. It's a little bit of stupid code. It's called the fuckton converter. And what it does is allow you to do something that nobody ever needed to do, which is convert metric and imperial weights into fucktons or shitloads or assloads or buttloads. It has some sort of pre-configured calculations on board. You can build it with a simple make. You run the converter. It asks you what units you want to convert to and convert from, and then it gives you results. So if you want to find out how many pounds 3.6 assloads is, it will be helpful in telling you that. It does actually work. It does build. It's available on GitHub. It's dumb, but it's also lightly amusing, and it could really quickly and easily be turned into like a stupid web app as well too. So, but there you go.
It's written in C++.
Yeah, C++, right? And it's GPL3, so it's copyleft. So you can fork it and make it your own.
Yeah.
I was careful when I said fork it.
Yeah.
Not that I needed to be, but there you go. So, yeah, from the world of stupid projects. Anyway, that brings us down to the end of our open source topics. So now we're on to Linux in the Ham Shack, and we do actually have a topic here. So I'll let Bill cover it.
Yeah, this is the latest preview release of FreeDV. Has a new digital HF mode. This is the first preview release of FreeDV containing the new RAID, the radio auto encoder, codename RAID mode. For more information about RAID's development, check out the blog post on the FreeDV website. As this is the first preview release, there are some limitations. As RAID currently doesn't return the signal to noise ratio, it's not currently possible to receive it and the other FreeDV modes at the same time. So if you choose RAID and push start, that's the only mode you can work. You'll need to force to stop, choose another mode, start again to work FreeDV with the existing modes. So the squelch cannot currently be disabled with RAID. 2020 and 2020B modes are disabled. There are currently no Windows ARM builds. You may be able to use the 64-bit Intel AMD Windows build in the meantime. Minimum hardware requirements haven't been fully outlined, so your system currently may not be able to use RAID. Future planned optimizations may improve this. FreeDV Reporter does not currently report receiving RAID signals, but will report that you are using it and when you are transmitting. Additionally, these preview builds are significantly bigger than previous releases. This is due to needing to include the Python and the modules that RAID requires. Planned porting to C, C++ will eventually negate the need for Python. The Windows build includes Python, but not the modules that RAID requires. As part of the install process, the version of Python built into FreeDV will go out to the internet to download to the needed modules. As development is expected to happen quickly, these preview builds have a 6-month expiry date. Lastly, 32-bit Windows is no longer supported due to its likely inability to work with RAID. And this came to us from the FreeDV website. So have you tried this?
I have not tried this. I haven't used FreeDV in a while, but I definitely want to jump back in now that this mode is available. And there are several updates directly from Dave Rowe about the RAID mode and its development and its incorporation into FreeDV. Links to all of those updates are, of course, linked in the show notes, as well as the actual FreeDV project. So something of interest, maybe. If you've ever used FreeDV, give it a shot. Try the new mode. And if you haven't tried FreeDV in the past, maybe check that out. There's some hardware you can buy that has like a dual sound card microphone, connector interface. If you don't want to have to set up a dual sound card system on your own, it's not that big a deal. But it's definitely different than other digital voice modes. Requires some additional hardware and some tinkering, but it's fun, and you do get crystal clear audio over HF when you're talking to people using it. And of course, it's underpinned by Codec 2, which was developed by Dave Rowe, and which is the thing that powers FreeDV, and which also now powers M17. So pretty cool stuff. And you have in here, or you left in here, the new rig control connector for Wavelog in development. And yes, it's still in development. It's exactly at the 0.01 stage it was when we first mentioned it.
0.0.00001.
Alpha. Yeah.
Alpha.
Because right now I'm toying with the idea of not writing it in PHP. So that's what I started with, but I have a feeling I might switch over to Python, or if I get really ambitious, C++. So,
or C sharp.
C sharp. Yeah, let's not go that route. But yeah, I do plan on working on this. As always, things are hectic, and I'm not exactly a paid developer. I would really love to make this work, because I really hate the existing CloudLog rig control thing that's written in PHP, because it's really buggy and doesn't work particularly well. And you have to, it doesn't have a method for demonizing, and you have to like push it into the background with a no hup so it will stay running, and otherwise you have to keep terminal windows open and blah blah blah. It's just I don't like it. It doesn't meet my needs. And then the biggest problem is I have 2 radios that I work HF with, and you have to do some machinations and some actual code adjustments to make it run 2 instances at the same time. So I'm hoping to take care of all of that when I get around to it.
You can do it.
Well, yeah, I can. It's just a question of when. It depends on whether I actually do, continue to write it in PHP and actually push something out and make it work before I decide to convert it over to something like Python or C++. In the case of C++, that requires me learning an entire computer language, entire programming language, because I have some fundamentals in C and C++, and I sort of get how they work, and I know that, and I understand object-oriented programming and things like that. So, I have the fundamentals, but I have never done any actual coding in C++. So, that's a thing.
Yeah, I'd almost go with Python, because there's got to be tons of code out there you can help to inspire what you're trying to accomplish. Plus, you can handle the multiple radios thing quite easily by just having the radio as a module and then importing it when you want to make the connection to it.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if I remember from way back in the early days of Python, there was a module called Twisted, which allows you to do that handles all the daemon stuff. So it's already a module available, and then it would just be doing the actual code to link in with HamLib.
Sounds good.
Yeah, well, as good as it's going to get for right now in 0.0.0.1 alpha. So, all right. Well, that brings us down to the end of our topics for the evening. Bill and I had a discussion a few days ago about Hamvention and the stuff we do here and the community outreach we like to do. And that actually requires, money. And we really, really try to avoid talking about money on this show. But we thought that maybe we could do one small push here to get more people to sign up on Patreon and PayPal. If you sign up on Patreon, it's a minimum of $2 a month, which, that's like a third of a cup of coffee these days or something like that.
Yeah, a third. Funny.
So if you could send us $2 by signing up on Patreon, that would be great. PayPal also has the option of doing a yearly funding, which is $20. That makes your contribution even less than $2 a month. We'd love to get 10 or 20 more people to support the show, and that would really help us out a lot. It would even allow us to probably go to more Hamfests and stuff through the year and things like that. But that's literally all we're going to say about that. So it's in your ear at this point, and if you're able to help out, we really appreciate it. But if you can't, we also totally understand, and by all means, just please keep listening. That's kind of what we do all this for. So that's all I've got in the way of announcements. Do you have anything?
Nothing new on my calendar.
Yeah, and I didn't see any feedback this time around either. So I guess it's a pretty short list in the social media realm tonight. So I guess I'll let you hit it up, because it's going to go quick.
Yeah. There were no new subscribers or Patreons this month. Nobody on Facebook or Twitter. We did get one on Instagram, Greg Goody. No one on Mastodon joined us. And on YouTube, we had Dr. Claw and Stephen Cook. Over on Discord, we have, K3FZT, Steve Rooster, number 1502. That's a lot of name and numbers. Sen4IK, SEN4IK, and Seth joined us on Discord. On the mailing list, we had KB9LXH. And in the live chat tonight on our weird Monday night, late night recording is Steve, KJ5T, out on a walk. So he's listening to us on the mobile.
And good. So he was with headphones most likely, and our segment on the converter, the aforementioned converter, was probably safe, at least for him. So.
Yes.
All right, and with that, we have come down to the end of the show. It has been a short topics episode, and we thank you for being here and listening, and I hope there were some topics of interest. And in the meantime, we hope you have a great week. We'll come back the next time around when we do the Weekender, and we'd love to have you back for that. In the meantime, we'll talk to you all very, very soon, but we're going to get on out of here. This has been episode number 559 of Linux in the Ham Shack. And for the On Assignment Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Live recordings are Sunday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time. Our homepage can be found at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/LHS podcast. We're also on Discord, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Mastodon. Contact us via email at info@lhspodcast.info or via voicemail at 190954777469. That's 1909 LHS show. We also have merch. So until next we meet, remember to always heed your hedonism.